my little moment of trawling through the trailer for little tidbits, and this is real tinfoil stuff. I mentioned this on the server. In the shot of the highway overpass, in the top left, there is a big metal storage container, not unlike the big metal storage container on the highway overpass where you fight Nyx at the end of Outbreak File 2, which is promising, if nothing else, for canonizing Outbreak, canonizing parts of Outbreak, and also just, and this is a whole other discussion, in terms of gameplay, what this game is. If we're roaming around Raccoon City, the idea of like finding stuff from other games and being like, oh my god, it's Raccoon City Park. People will lose their mind when they can finally go to the clock tower in this game and see what it's like in the RE engine. But as much as we make fun of those people sometimes, that will be really cool.
Yes. If this does get to be like a anniversary whistle-stop tour of places you remember or sort of remember from the Resident Evil universe with a new character who has context to the past, that is cake and eat it moment.
It really is.
There are shots in here that look like they could have been pulled from any of the areas in Resident Evil. Like, you know, we're talking that it looks like it's evoking the dog corridor. Someone in the discussion chat earlier said, oh, it actually looks a lot like this corridor from Outbreak. You know, there are areas that look like they are homaging other areas, and that's wonderful. I personally can already see, I've stopped the YouTube trailer on the frame of what Sai is referring to about Nyx's container. I can see the red rings and arrows forming in my mind. It's kind of, I'm down for that. I want to talk about BOWs actually.
Okay,
but so there's a creature in this that looks like it's riffing on what if the suspended liquor was massive.
Yes.
And if they're going down that route, there are so many horrible things in Raccoon City now. What was it? The closing shots of the giant old zombie looking thing with teeth, and the rattling of chains. I doubt I'm the only person to think this, but this screams that this could be a certain Remake 1 character who's been missing for a while.
Someone who can't die.
Someone who can't die, reunited with a mother, and they will be even like another 30 years on from what they've been going through. I genuinely am worried that might be Lisa Trevor. Like in the best possible way, what will be the worst, most nightmarish thing to come back?
Yes.
But yeah, that evokes that to me. Whether it is or if it's just riffing on, and that's the vibe I'm getting.
And I love stuff. Sorry, Steve, just want to cut in really quickly. I love stuff like that for the web of the potential stuff that it creates. Because if there is a Resident Evil 1 remake, and however you feel about that, again, that is adding context when we go back and this is Lisa Trevor from 30 years ago. Like if she's Lisa Trevor. If it is Lisa Trevor in Requiem, and then we get to see her in the RE engine as she was, how we remember her, and we just build up more of this for the audience that may not have played RE1 and stuff. Obviously, is what I mean. Like that works really, really well. But yeah, go on.
Well, following that, all the stuff like obviously it's the remake RPD. So let's just rip that Band-Aid off. That's the version they're going with.
Yeah,
okay,
sure.
That means that it could also be going even further in that it's clearly not taking out top of Raccoon City. What's underneath? Because they already had lots of G-Virus stuff just dipped under there and it was infested and there is going to be a lot of potential for nightmare creatures is all I'm saying.
Yep.
Yeah, no. And then just cap it off, we've got like what appears to be a man being zombified in real time. Looks like a cop, like he's transforming in front of you rapidly. He's not covered in blood. He's just like, he's got a case of the unwell. So it's not going to be just stuff that's familiar, is what I'm saying.
Yes. Although it will be intriguing to see what the balance there is, because I do think if we're doing this anniversary sort of look back at Raccoon City, and there is obviously so much potential for nods and stuff, I do hope we see evolutions of stuff that we've known that has, survived regardless. Something like, and this is kind of obvious, but if you're going to do one set in a previous radioactive wasteland, plague crawlers need to make their return as cockroaches. They, we all know the cockroaches, the only thing that can survive a nuclear explosion, cockroaches and Twinkies. Twinkies! let's Let's bring back plague crawlers. And yeah, I don't know, the Regis sort of suspended liquor thing, it looks a lot bigger, but again, it's RE Engine, so you don't know, they can absolutely make changes like that. You know, these things happen with designs. We saw it before in the previous remakes, so why not here? In terms of the G-Virus stuff, if you're following on from the remakes, yeah, like in the original games, there's not this giant nest of fleshy material, unlike in remakes where they made a big deal of that. And again, I love talking about this stuff because it's like, if that happens in Requiem, if you go back and play Remake 2 afterwards, and you get to that room, you're like, oh boy, this is
where it started.
Exactly, this is the seed for this whole bit in Requiem. My prediction is actually that we don't go underground all that much, and I think because that is really ripping a lid off things. Like, oh, okay, we also have to do crazy G-Virus, but maybe they do. Like, who even knows like what the limitations are here? It's kind of mad to think. Oh boy!
So not to just completely derail our conversation with something I just saw mid-frame during the podcast, but the suspended, or the thing that I suspected was suspended, has chains around their wrists.
It does have chains.
So I was going to say, what if it's a liquor that's just been around for 30 years and a bit radioactive? No. This is definitely was a person who's been chained up.
Or they chained up the liquor, but yeah, like it could be someone that's been turned on purpose. Down the end of that corridor, I thought that was a person, but now that I look at it, I think it might just be a statue.
Yeah, it looks like a horse statue, maybe. Yeah, oh God, we could like be doing
puzzles and stuff, Steve. Puzzles.
Yeah,
puzzles and corridors. What more could you want?
Exactly.
For me, the thing is, and we talked about the potential here of like really digging into the history, and I'm sure there are people out there who are worried about this as being a bit of a nostalgia sort of fest, and I do get that. What I would somewhat say to that is that I would more inclined to agree with that if we were getting this now without the remakes. Like, it would be as exciting, if not more exciting, to finally see Raccoon City in this. Imagine if this was our first look. Like, oh my God, we're going back after literally 30 years of never coming back because of the remakes. But it very clearly feels like I don't think the remakes were intentionally leading up to this. This was not in necessarily the plan as far back as when they did Remake 2. But again, for fans that are more casual or that are a little bit younger or have come in at the RE Engine era because it's the perfect time to come into Resident Evil with this big long history and you don't know where to start with this sort of soft reboot, if you like, of everything. And again, I mentioned him, Size Guy, is, working his way through Resident Evil games. When we were watching this trailer, he got excited about being in the RPD again. And he only was literally there for the first time this past Christmas. But there is something cool, as you said earlier, about going back to locations that you're familiar with and seeing how they've changed, how they've, destruction has worn through different pathways and what's grown and what's no longer there and how things like that kind of fit together is really, really interesting. But also just because obviously there's so many great locations in Raccoon City that's going to be fun to revisit in general. It feels really clever as like, hey, that's the thing from the remake games that you played over the last few years. Now you're going back to it. You're familiar with it now because you only played it in 2019 at the very late, furthest back, or 2020 if you played Remake 3. So you'll be familiar with it still, and you'll be able to go, oh my God, this is this. Unlike us nerds who will be able to just do that anyway. Like, everyone's going to get something out of this Return to Raccoon City, I think is the point that I'm trying to make, but I can't make words come out my mouth good at this point.